is recording a smash hit single, is it a lot like winning a golf tournament in terms of
Yeah,
1 minute you feel like you have it and then another time you're kind of in the wilderness, as they say?
yeah, yeah. I think, it is very similar. Like winning a golf tournament is hard. You got to be good for 4 days. It's not like a basketball game where you have to be good for an hour and a half or whatever. And and writing a song, it should just be effortless to me. I know a lot of people, they just go deep into it and work and work and work. Drop to Jupiter came to me in a dream after my mother had passed away, and it was very quick. And and when they're quick like that, you're like, this song's probably garbage because I can't write a song in 20 minutes that's worth listening to for 40 years. But it is like a swing. When you're in the zone, like if that's where you are, like we've been done with records and I've written a really special song, and then we go like, okay, keep the lid off. Don't, this soup's not done yet. If this is the kind of song you're writing now, let's find out what comes next. It's like golf for sure.
Pat Monahan on the Content Clubhouse podcast, the Grammy award winning lead singer and frontman of a band called Train. You may have heard of them. But for the purposes of this show, Pat, you're also an avid golfer and a massive fan of the game. You recently competed alongside Stephen Fisk in what I believe was your seventh Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And Pat, I'm just curious, have you ever caught yourself mentally rehearsing a swing thought or thinking about golf, either backstage during a show or at any other time playing music? I'm imagining maybe a little interlock grip on the microphone while nobody's looking. Anything like that ever happen?
I was just in Vegas doing a private show, and I had a lesson last week. So, I'm the same guy that you see in the airport, like doing this whole move because and it's so silly. Like when my wife sees me do it, she just walks away. But, I'm trying to narrow my stance. I'm trying to bring the club back differently. Like I was telling some people that I play golf with, professional hockey guys that play for the Kraken, and they're such good golfers because they've been swinging a stick since they were, infants. And they do it the right way. So they bring the club around, the way it should be. And I grew up playing baseball. So it's just years and years of trying to fix what's broken. But yeah, there's always some backstage golf swings.
So you talk about narrowing your stance. What's kind of the swing thought these days that your pros get you working on?
So there's, I've been told by several pros that I need to narrow my stance. And I never understood why. And it's really because when your stance is wide and you're a 24-year-old kid, that's fine. You're just going to cork through it. But when you're my age, you can only get the club back so far. And so by the time the club face comes in, sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed, and you're not getting the power through it. So anyway, that's one swing thought. And then the other is just to swing back instead of up because I have a tendency to fade the ball pretty good.
Yeah, I can empathize with that, man, as an over the top guy myself. But that's really interesting. Is there on kind of on the same theme? Is there an equivalent of that, like for music, or does that just come so naturally? But I imagine, are you ever sitting there thinking through some things? Do you have to have, for lack of a better word, music thoughts from time to time, or is there an equivalent?
At this point, not really. I mean, I compare golf and music a lot, but not in the terms of like performance. Like, these guys on the tour, they're not really thinking about all the stuff that I, think about on the golf course. But we if we switched roles and they had to go sing, they would be in their head about it. And I've talked to some of these guys about it, and that's where it's similar. But also, we don't get to see all the golfers that are trying to make a living at it. You see that very top tier, and that's the same in music. There's a lot of musicians trying to make it that are driving around in vans with gear, And there's a lot of golfers doing the same thing, trying to make enough money to get to the next week.
Yeah. Well, so to dive a little bit into your overall story and specifically kind of your golf backstory. So when did you really start picking up the game, and then when did it become an increasingly bigger part of your life? Was that pre the music career taking off or afterward?
No, like when I was a kid growing up in Erie, Pennsylvania, my dad loved golf. He was obsessed with Ben Hogan and Jack Nicklaus, and I wasn't. And I would take his sticks out and go play a $5 course in Erie, and didn't really care about it because I was trying to make baseball teams and basketball teams and football. And then because I had a little experience with it, I was asked by some guys to play a round of golf in San Francisco. And I was in my 40s, my early 40s at the time. And when I went, I met a group of guys that I was like, if this is who I can be around from playing golf, I'm going to get better at golf. And that was the defining moment for me, because then I got to see who what the game attracts, and that if I could be around people like that more often, I'd be a much happier person. That's when golf became important.
Yeah. Well, in terms of, I think you mentioned, the early days there in moving and getting out to San Francisco, thinking about the early days of Train and starting the band back in 1993, you're touring nationally just a few years later, opening for the likes of Counting Crows, Hootie and the Blowfish, Bare Naked Ladies, a bunch, some huge, huge bands, both then and now. Who was the first band or artist that either you opened for or played the same show as, where maybe you got a little bit of nerves, like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe we've reached this level?
Well, I'm a big Don Henley and Eagles fan, and we did Tiger Jam years and years ago, and we played right before Don Henley. And meeting Don was really like a really cool experience for me. So that was like a early moment of, if we can be on the same stage with Don Henley, we might be getting somewhere. That was a cool moment for me.
And then kind of as you're growing into your own, and the band is, becoming what would become the Train that we all know and love. And you talk about the story of all the musicians that you don't see, right? The guys in the van trying to make a living. What were some of those early days like where you're trying to fashion a career out of this in San Francisco? Just kind of would love to hear what that was like, and compare it to maybe how, again, we know from the sphere that kind of we inhabit with golf, kind of what that looks like. Corn Ferry Tour, playing for really small purses, trying to earn some points. I guess, what is the same ladder climb? What did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, it was, like as a kid, you try to figure out how to get good at whatever the instrument is. I was a drummer at the time. So when I moved to San Francisco, I had already met a couple guys from Los Angeles that were going to move there so we could start working together. One guy played guitar, so he and I would write songs, and then we would go play every open mic night possible. So I was the house painter, and I would go paint houses all day, go home and shower, and then go play music for free for 6 hours or wherever, however long, wherever we could. And that is a grind, man, because years of playing for free, it's lovely, but we were just there performing our own music, because there's no sense in going to play covers if you're trying to get people to like you. So you want to keep creating. I don't know what the equivalent of that would be in golf. Uh, it would be like making your own golf clubs, I suppose, in a way, where you're trying to get noticed for the creative part of it. And then the next guy joined us, and then it was two guitars, and I was playing percussion and singing, and then the other two guys joined us, and now we're a full band. And we're just playing free, 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 and then all of a sudden you get your first $500 show, and then your $1,000 show, and then you start to have a fan base, because at the same time websites didn't exist, so we were passing out flyers and getting names so that we could send flyers to them. And then when the internet happened, we had a manager at the time that said, the internet is a fad. It's going away. We were like, maybe you're not the right manager. This seems weird. And so then you just grow it from there. And San Francisco was a beautiful place to do it because there were so many coffee houses and places to perform for free. And then there were also great places like the Fillmore that we strived to perform in, but you needed to have fans, and we earned that right, or we earned that chance to play there. So that was
Yeah,
the
you
beginning.
mentioned the sorry, you mentioned the Fillmore, and I was saying just before we hopped on about how I listened to your awesome interview with Golf Digest on the Loop podcast. People should go check that out if they haven't listened to it already. But you mentioned, I think the question was about kind of cathedrals of music and performing, right? And kind of equating that to how I think Rory has described like some of these cathedrals of golf as being, greater places to play or to win, or that are almost kind of like on the bucket list of pro golfers to like, hey, if I can have
Hmm.
on the end of my resume by the end of my career that, yeah, I won at Pebble or I won at Augusta or what
Hmm.
have you. And you mentioned the Fillmore in San Francisco as that being kind of a place for you guys because that's where you started. I guess like what was that like? Like I guess how many times had you dreamed of playing in that type of environment? I imagine you said years as a painter, right? And playing these places. How long from I'm in San Francisco and I want to play the Fillmore? How many years and what was that journey like between that moment and finally realizing that up on the stage?
Yeah, that was probably 3 years of work, writing songs and getting to the Fillmore. And I guess it would be it would the Fillmore felt like a major tournament. That felt like the U.S. Open. And then as time goes on, you realize, okay, that was a tournament, and winning that tournament was big. But then we got to play Royal Albert Hall, a year and a half ago, and you go like, maybe this is a major. We headlined Madison Square Gardens. That seems kind of like a major. I'd love to play Wembley Stadium one day. That would definitely be a major. So there are so many venues that you have to, in your brain, they all seem like major tournament wins. But then after 30 years of doing it, then you can categorize it differently. And the Fillmore that was our first win. It will always be the most important room in America to us. Whether it was a major or not is just a perspective.
Yeah. And again, the idea of I like the way you said kind of winning your hometown event is just so special. You even hear guys like Scotty Scheffler talk about tournaments in Dallas being almost as important to him as winning another major for that exact reason.
Yeah.
But to kind of continue the golf and music theme here, so you talk about your perspective having changed over, yeah, I mean, you mentioned 30 plus years. We're coming up on, or this year is 25 years on from the famous drops of Jupiter. And you guys have and I definitely want to hear about the exciting stuff you guys have planned for this year around that. But over that span, I mean, as much in music as it is in golf, longevity is a rare thing, right? Like there's only a handful of Tigers, Phils, Jacks, people who won in across 1, 2, 3, even 4 decades. Like that takes a certain kind of competitor, and music is no different. I'm just curious, what do you think has allowed you to maintain this for so long? Again, as we look back at 25 years since Drops of Jupiter.
Yeah, I think, I don't ever like to sound like a guy who needs to compliment himself because that's not an attractive characteristic. But I think in golf and music, it has to start with talent, right? So Jack, Rory, these guys, they know how to do what they do. And I feel like the same thing in music. The next thing is competitiveness. Uh, my competitiveness isn't as much I need to beat you to win. It used to be as when I was a kid because it was actually literally shelf space we were fighting for. It doesn't have to be that. I don't need to beat somebody to win like you do in golf. But at some stage, I think for these guys, they're not even trying to beat the guy. They're trying to beat them. And if I can overcome that, and then you go like, how do you inspire yourself to be that? And I love what young people do musically. I like my I have a I mostly just turn on hip hop stations, like J. Cole and Kendrick and Drake and those guys. I love that. It's something I can't do. I'm not allowed to do it, and so I can just fully engage in it, and that inspires me. And in the world of golf, does Tiger does he look at younger players and get inspired? I think the answer is yeah. I think has befriended many of them. This guy is a legend. And he's lovely to be around. I love that guy, and he just inspires you to want to be more like him instead of like, I met Tiger and he just wants to beat me. He's like not like that. He already won. You know what I mean? So I think having that kind of attitude is very important in music too.
I love how you bring up the J. Cole point because that's actually something that I wanted to ask you about. Because when I first heard you say that, I was like, that sounds kind of surprising, to me. But then when I think about it, really, virtually every time I've heard an artist talk about the music that they listen to, it's almost always so broad and so different from the style that they perform. Like, why do you think that is? What is it about listening to other kinds of music that makes you better at creating your own?
I don't know. It's a good question. Like listening to how brilliant these kids are writing lyrics, and then I can relate to so many of them. Like J. Cole's got a song that goes, "First thing first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil, for real. You're the only father that I ever knew." Like he's talking about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and that that Uncle Phil was a father figure to him. Like that's a brilliant guy writing brilliant stuff. Like, and I can't ignore that. And it just makes me want to do something in my field, in the lane my lane. I'd like to not be like this. I like it to be like that because I want to feel like I can move around in that lane. But he's definitely in a place that I'm not allowed to go to. Uh, because it wouldn't make sense. It's not like somebody saying you can't go make a hip hop record, but it just wouldn't make sense. You'd be like, I'm not going to listen to that. So that not having to compete with J. Cole and just be able to fully engage in his music and love it for what it is really important. It's like golfers who they love music. Like we're in different places. They can just fully engage in loving you, but they don't want to sit and talk about how a guy swings the golf club so much better than them. That's a different kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it almost brings to mind like partly why Michael Jordan loved golf so much, right? Because like, yes,
Yeah,
he could bring that competitiveness to it, but it's like he could talk like, "Hey, how do I get better at golf?" Whereas he's not. It's not. He's not buddy buddy with the other opposing point guard. Talking details.
right.
And while he may privately really respect somebody else's game in basketball, it's a whole lot easier for him to kind of have those conversations and interact in that way on the golf course. But
Hmm.
um, as far as listening to other music and creating different types of music, again, you mentioned, and it makes sense why there are reasons that you can't or wouldn't put out like a hip hop album. But does that ever stop you from just in the studio on your own playing around with that type of stuff? I'm just curious what that kind of looks like.
No, no, we do it. We always try to you know tap into things that seem outside of what we should be doing because you never know what will like we have a song called 50 Ways to Say Goodbye. It was built basically on a mariachi group. My bass player's Mexican, but he doesn't like try to write a bunch of mariachi songs in the band. So it's like we maybe weren't a mariachi band, but we were able to incorporate because of our fondness for it. Like I love mariachi, man. I mean, there's a band even called Mariachi El Bronx, and I love that band. They're like a heavy, like mariachi band that like incorporates like heavy music too, like heavy metal. So I can love everything, and we can try everything, but it doesn't all make a record. That's all.
Yeah. I think that song is an awesome example because I know exactly the one you're talking about, and yeah, the acoustic guitar in that is so like that's my like last memory of that. So it's so interesting to hear that yeah, it sounds like was that one of I guess the foundational pieces of that? Like maybe you found that guitar first. Like how did that? Did you listen to a
Yeah.
mariachi band at one point and just say, oh yeah, we want to do something like this, or how did that song come to be? I guess.
Well, we've had mariachi bands like open for us and stuff before, and because I think they're so talented and so interesting. But I think that whole song started with boom, ba-dum, bat, boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-dum. It's a like flamenco type, but flamenco players are like crazy gifted. Uh, but yeah, I think it started with that, and then the whole vibe was like, let's just take it the whole way and see where it goes, and that's how
Mhm.
that goes.
Yeah, that's obviously one of your most famous songs. Again, you guys at Train have had so many over the years, and again, listening to your episode with the Golf Digest guys talking about how Drops of Jupiter came to be, right? And I don't want you to rehash that story in full, but more or less, right? It sounds like you guys were looking for a hit single, and then in 20 minutes, this whole just song just came to you. And what that really reminded me of, and I'm curious if this parallel exists with music as well, but you'll hear a lot of pro golfers talk about when they're playing well, when they're winning, when the swing feels good, it feels like the game will never leave them, right? And they
Hmm.
say the opposite is true when they're struggling. Like it seems like it can feel like they'll never find quote unquote it again.
Yep. Hmm.
And as a totally ignorant outsider, again, it seems to me like maybe music could be similar. Is recording a smash hit single? Is it a lot like winning a golf tournament in terms of
Yep.
1 minute you feel like you have it, and then another time you're kind of in the wilderness, as they say?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it is very similar. Like when you see, like winning a golf tournament is hard. You got to be good for 4 days. It's not like a basketball game where you have to be good for an hour and a half or whatever. And, and writing a song, it should just be effortless to me. I know a lot of people, they just go deep into it and work and work and work. I know that I Can't Make You Love Me it took years to write that song, and it was two guys hashing it out, but it's one of the greatest songs of all time. Drops of Jupiter came to me in a dream after my mother had passed away, and it was very quick. And and when they're quick like that, you're like, this song's probably garbage because I can't write a song in 20 minutes that's worth listening to for 40 years, but it is like a swing when you're in the zone. Like if that's where you are, like we've been done with records and I've written a really special song, and then we go like, okay, keep the lid off. Don't, this soup's not done yet. If this is the kind of song you're writing now, let's find out what comes next. It's like golf for sure.
What does that look like, from a music perspective? You talk about keeping the lid off. Is that, hey, the studio's it's hot right now, let's just stay in here? Just take us into those moments when you looking around at
No,
each other like, wait, we've got something here, or
yeah,
just how does that go?
we don't usually go to studios anymore. We'll do that after we write the song and a bunch of the parts are on there. We'll do live drums, and sometimes I'll go after the vocal or whatever. But we're mostly all remote since COVID. We just all work from our own homes and send each other stuff, and the quality is really high. But I will give you an example. We have the 25th anniversary of Drops of Jupiter, so we have a tour called Drops of Jupiter, 25 years in the atmosphere. We're touring with Bare Naked Ladies and Matt Nathanson, and the goal was go write three songs that we can put on that record. So we wrote three songs, and they were so good to my managers that they were like, "Yes, let's scrap that idea. Go make a whole album. Like this is a better idea." And it's kind of like watching a guy he's like, "Hey, I'm going to take the year off of golf and just practice," and then they go win a tournament, and you're like, "Why don't you take next year off because you're in a place right now?" And it was kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, to the idea about it being like winning a golf tournament, we've seen again from pros just what those periods in between wins can look like. And as you say, it's not a number one hits and green jackets are not growing on trees, right? Like these are things that do not happen all the time. What do those periods in between those moments look like? How do you maintain the confidence that, like, yes, we have good music in us even when maybe the results aren't always there?
You work through it. I mean, and I told your buddies on the other podcast last week that like talking to Jake Knapp was so inspiring for me because he was telling me that he gets the most amount of joy in golf by practicing. And that was wild to me because guys like me don't practice. Like we usually jump out of our car and go to the first tee. And so the first thing I did when I got home from the AT&T was I went and practiced. I put earbuds in and I was like, you're going to like this. And I was like, okay, I can see why you would like this. You have to figure out how to get better. And in songwriting, you might write a great song and then nine bad ones, but you got to keep fighting through it. Write the nine so you can get to the 10th and then so on and so forth. It's practice.
Yeah. Well, a couple of kind of lighter golf ones, and then I definitely want to hear a little bit more about the tour coming up. But going back to the conversation about the Fillmore, right, and that being, a place that when you first started you were just dreaming of playing in, and then one day you find yourself there. From a golf perspective, I imagine the music career has opened a lot of doors to some places that before you picked up an instrument would have been a dream to play. Have there been any that you've dreamed of that you've been able to check off the list for you?
I think I would say 95% of the golf courses that I have played are because I can sing, not because I can play golf. And I'm really lucky that I had that. Like I kid, but I do tell people that when I'm walking down the first fairway at Augusta National, I know my father's up there going, it should have been me. Playing Cypress Point for the first time. I was talking to Rory um, when we were at Pebble together, and I was talking to him about his favorite places to play golf in America. And he was like, well, all the obvious ones, but the one that I really love because of how challenging it is and it makes you think is Pine Valley. And I was like really interested in that because I've played Pine Valley a couple of times because I can sing. And I find it to be hard golf. But so for Rory, that's what he wants, right? Because he's so excellent that was a challenging place for him. But like that course, I wouldn't have played San Francisco without being able to sing. Um, I belong to a place on Maui called McKenna, and we just in December, me and 16 of my dear friends went there and had we called it Monahan Mania, mayhem or something, and it was the best time ever. And I would not know those guys if I couldn't sing. My whole life is because I can sing. You should see how beautiful my wife is. If she if she met me and she found me on a golf course, she wouldn't have cared. Uh, I'm married to her because I can sing, and I'm okay with all that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Um, and then you mentioned, kind of spending some time with Rory and other big golfers. Was there ever, I guess, a playing partner as you kind of grew in these places you're able to play and as Train's popularity grew? Can you think of an example of like, oh yeah, this first tee shot's a little more nerve wracking? You mentioned Augusta playing there, but were there some playing partners that you were like really excited for, but albeit definitely made it a little more high pressure for you?
I've had such incredible experiences at the AT&T Pro-Am at Pebble Beach, like Ricky Barnes, golfing with Ricky really because for the first year I played with a guy named Zach Blair. Zach is a quieter guy, but Ricky, he was like really took me in like, come on, bro, we got this. We can, let's go play some golf together. And that was like so I needed it, right? Because that's what an amateur like me would need. But he didn't have to do that. He did it because he's super chill. He's great at golf, and he's really good at helping people get through their own head. Uh, Chris Stroud, the same way. Like Chris, I got to play with, and he was just lovely. Um, you know, most of these guys, they want to take the pressure off of you and make it about them, which is what they should do because they're trying to make a living and win the tournament. And that is a very important thing for an amateur because then I can just go have fun, stay out of his way, and those are magic moments. But every first tee shot, it doesn't matter if you're with a group at your own club or the first tee shot that you hit on number one at Pebble Beach during that week. It's always something nerves.
Is there a hole out there? I'd love to just go golf nerd here. Like, is there a tee shot out there at Pebble now that you played it however many times that you're really like, yeah, this one gets me?
It's 18. It's 18 for sure. It's a hard tee shot because you want to go right because there's an ocean to your left. But if you go right, they put bunkers there. But if you go middle, there's a tree there. So you have this lane that's this big. And one year, I was, one year there were camera guys following us, and the camera guy actually said to me, "This is the only tee shot you have to hit well today." Guess where that shot went? Yeah, in the ocean. And so the more pressure you put on yourself to do anything, the worse golf you're going to play. Like these guys, I think, poor Shane Lowry this week, I think he just really put a lot of pressure on himself to finish so strong instead of just trusted himself. And, he was such a beautiful golfer, but that happens, like I'll be the best round of golf I ever had was TPC in Louisiana. I made a 72, which is a 70 course. So I was two over still. I still have not made par anywhere. And when I was on the last tee box, I was like, I'm probably going to triple bogey this because I'm close. And I didn't, but that's typically my game. If I'm coming in under 80, there's probably a double
Yeah.
coming up.
Well, last one here for you. Again, the tour for Drops of Jupiter 25th anniversary coming up this year. You guys are playing at some really, really cool places. I know Red Rocks is on the list. Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm definitely gonna have to tell my mom. She's been to a bunch of your shows, and that's one near to home for her. But is there a place that you're particularly excited about, or something this year that you want to tell the folks listening about that'll for a preview of the tour, so to speak?
Well, I'd like to start by saying, please tell your mom. My slogan is always, "Hey, new train music coming out. Tell your grandma." Like that's what I say to all the guys I golf with. So this is perfect for that. This whole tour is just going to be a lot of fun. We have a new album. It's the anniversary of Drops of Jupiter. Bare Naked Ladies will be out with us. We haven't performed with them for, the last time I think we did a show together was on Alcatraz. And so I'm really looking forward to that because they're lovely guys. So, like, when we go into Toronto, it's going to be so cool because they're a Canadian band. And it's just going to be just so fun. And then Matt Nathanson is a good friend of ours who's been on many of our cruises and several of our tours. And we we are old enough at this point where touring is about camaraderie. It's not about being better or taking something, or it's everybody's job, no matter where you are in this lineup, to make sure that the people who bought those tickets have a great time. And so we'll have all the guys up at the end so we can do some music together. And I think that camaraderie is what I look forward to seeing as an audience member. And so we provide that for Train fans, Bare Naked Lady fans, and Nathanson fans. It's like you're here, you bring your family. This is what I wish the world looked like outside of
Yeah.
the stage.
That's awesome. Well, again, Pat, thank you so much for taking some time, and yeah, best of luck on the tour. People can go check it out, get tickets online. But again, thank you so much, and best of luck on the tour. And as always, hit them straight.
I'm trying, man. All right, great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you spending time with me.